Coming on. Okay. Hi, Nia.
Yeah.
I'm
Hi.
so happy you're here.
Thank you so much for having me. I am excited to chat with you about all the things.
There are so many of all the things. So let's start with your infertility. I feel like that's probably the best place to start. Give me your nutshell story, and then let's talk about your current happy ending. I don't know that it's the end for you, but how your current happy ending.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, Starting back in my late 20s, after being married for 4 years, I was like, okay, ready to have babies. I am Latina. I am young. I am healthy. My mom was one of six, and they are all 1 year apart, except for the last one was a few years later. So I know there's fertility on the feminine side of my family. My grandfather on the Mexican side of my family was one of 13. So I had no doubt that I would get pregnant the first time we tried.
Of course.
And we were, we're just one of those couples where we're like, we can just do it every single day of the month. We'll make it happen. We'll get pregnant. We didn't even know anything about female health in the way of like, oh, there's only a few days that it really actually works. We started trying, and after 2 or 3 months, even, I was shocked that we were not pregnant. So skip to around the 6 month window, I started going to my doctor and I said, I want to get everything checked out now. I should already be pregnant. He gently said, well, typically we wait till a year until we start doing tests. But I told her, absolutely not. I should be pregnant right now. And if there is something wrong, why would I wait until 1 year to find out? If it's wrong, why not find out at 6 months and address it? Um, all of my numbers were healthy. Everything was fine. My thyroid numbers were just slightly high. Um, for the overall health like window, they were fine. But if you're really trying to conceive, that fertility number, it was just a little high. So got me on some thyroid medication. Everything was regulated within 2 months and still not getting pregnant. So around 1 year of trying is when we started meeting with a fertility doctor. Um, and again, there's so many details. I'm sure everybody has so many details, but big bullet points. Met with a fertility doctor, decided that the best approach was to do at least 2 to 3 rounds of IUI, see if that works to get pregnant. And in my head, I'm thinking, yeah, like everything else is great. If we just need a little bit of medical help and we're going to get pregnant, no problem. So I was already let down every month when I wasn't getting pregnant, especially, I'm still in my 20s. Why is this not working? And then now I have medical help and I'm doing all the hormones and I'm doing the injections and the shots and the scans multiple days a week, still not getting pregnant. The emotional letdown then was even heavier than it had been before. And by the third failed IUI, we decided to give my body a little bit of a break and prepare for IVF in the summer. This was like late winter, early spring. And at the last IUI as well, I'm looking up everything. I'm reading only consuming products out of glass, not plastic. Like everything is changing in my life. And I also started doing fertility acupuncture the last round, my third IUI. And my acupuncturist was so confident. He said, don't do IUI. I will take care of it. And I said, I've already paid thousands of dollars for this round. We're doing the IUI.
Hmm.
And I, that last one I didn't get pregnant, but then one full cycle later, after I was done with my last IUI round that didn't work, we conceived naturally, which was just mind blowing. So this was about a year and a half into the journey, 18 cycles of trying, finally conceived on the 18th cycle. And conceived a little boy. He's 2.5 years old now.
Did your
We had started trying
acupuncturist
again after, well,
did your acupuncturist take credit? Was
uh-huh.
he like, I told
What was
you?
that?
Did your acupuncturist take credit? He was like, I told you I
Oh
got
yeah.
you. Yeah.
Absolutely. And he's wonderful. He's in LA and he speaks very broken English. He's from Shanghai. And he was just so confident. He was like, yeah, I told you, just like, give me a few months. I got you. No big deal. So he was very happy for me. I brought my son in after he was born and I was like, here's Asher, like you helped me conceive him. So yeah, that was great. But that's up until like the first pregnancy. Do you want me to share a little more or we get into like how the twins were conceived?
Yes, and
Where do you want to go with that?
yeah, I want to hear about the second journey, but also just to clarify, you had unexplained infertility. Like nothing was diagnosed during all of this, right? That's why they were like,
Yes.
let's try this and then let's try that because nothing was clearly going on.
Yeah, thank you for asking. So when I did my initial meeting with the first fertility doctor I met with at 12 months, we did a full consultation, looked at all my numbers. I gave him all of our background, medical background. I like tracked all my health with my Fitbit. I was like, this is how much I sleep. This is how much I meditate. This is like everything about my life. And he diagnosed me with unexplained infertility. He's like, there's no reason you should not be pregnant right now. You should have conceived by 1 year with both. And it wasn't just me doing the test. My husband did his side of testing, both of us perfectly healthy and lifestyles reflecting that, especially starting at that 6-month window. So we were diagnosed with unexplained infertility, which for me as a type A woman that is like, tell me what to do and I will do it. Oh, that was like the worst thing to hear because I'm like, just tell me what to do. I'll fix it. So I listened to and follow Dr. Amy, who I'm sure a lot of people know, the egg whisperer, and she just gives so much information that helps you feel empowered. And just the same way that your podcast does as well. I feel like people are learning so much through your podcast, feel empowered to speak with their medical providers in an informed way where they can help really make decisions for themselves and not just be like, sure, whatever you tell me. So even after that initial consultation, I didn't really love the bedside manner of that doctor. I switched doctors at the same practice and felt very empowered to have conversation with her instead of having her speak at me about my own fertility. So at that point, I was very well versed in all of the acronyms in the fertility world and how to best approach it with her guidance. But yes, I was diagnosed with unexplained infertility right at the 12-month mark.
Okay, so now you're like, we're ready for baby two. Tell them, pick it up. What happens?
Okay, so I did right after giving birth, like my 6-week checkup. I'm like, let's test it. I want to know. And it was, maybe it wasn't the I think it was a 6-week checkup. No, it wasn't. Okay, sorry. Let me start that over if you want to edit that out.
Perfect.
Okay, so I had my 6-week checkup after the baby. Everything was healthy. I came back in a few months later. It was like 2 or 3 months later for just a well woman's annual exam. And at that time, I wanted to do my AMH. So around month 4 of postpartum, I found out that my AMH had dropped significantly. When I first started trying, my AMH was at a 2.3, which my doctor was like, oh, that's perfectly healthy for a woman in her late 20s, early 30s. That's great. And then around the time we started doing IUIs, it was a 1.8. And then she was like, let's just get it tested one more time, like depending on the lab or the time that you're doing your testing. It could fluctuate a teensy bit, but generally it's pretty standard. So we did one more test and it was at a 1.6. And she said, you know what? I'm not worried unless you drop below 1.5. Then we really need to talk about like preserving your fertility, maybe pulling out some eggs. Like we don't have to So after giving birth and waiting a few months, I went and I got my AMH tested again, and it was at a 1.3. So I was like, what? It's dropping. It's below 1.5. Doctor, and she said, we're not in a rush, but we do need to start having conversations about if you want more children, what we're going to do to make sure that that can happen for you. So I had not gotten my period back yet. I was still breastfeeding. And so I text all my friends crying, please pray for me to get my period pray that I can have another baby. Like, I just don't know if it's going to happen, and I'm scared, and I want a larger family. And that's what we had always prayed for and hoped for. So my friends were praying for me. 2 months later, 3 months later, I got my cycle back and told my husband, what if it takes us another year or year and a half? Or what if we have to go into IVF, which is fine. We need to start saving for that. It was about 5 months later that we conceived the next pregnancy. And we were saving up for IVF, conversations with the doctor. We like save and bank eggs before they're gone. But we conceived naturally again with my fertility acupuncturist. And I know that is not a fix it all. That was just like in my head. I'm like, dang, Dr. Dan knows what he's doing for me and my body. And like my body responds to acupuncture very well. So I went to Dr. Dan for 2 months after trying for a few months. And then by month 5, we got pregnant again. And then it was twins. I went into my fertility doctor because my normal OB, they're like, oh, we'll wait till 10 weeks. But with my previous pregnancy, my fertility doctor was with me the whole way through. And she said, I'm so glad you came in right away to get your numbers checked. You may have lost this pregnancy because your progesterone is so low. So with my normal OB saying, oh, wait till week 10 for a scan. I'm like, no, I don't know what my body's doing. I need to be my own advocate.
Yes.
I need to speak up for myself, because every opportunity I have to maybe be a mother again, I need to value this and make sure that I know it's so precious and so rare for me. So my fertility doctor, even though I hadn't seen her since a year and a half before, was so gracious and let me come in and get my blood and my numbers tested. Everything came back great, except for my progesterone was very low again. So she got me on progesterone right away at week 7. She said, oh, there's 2 sacs. Looks like you're having twins. And I was like, what is happening? There's no twins in our family. It was completely unexpected. And it was, come to find out, a few weeks later, I went to a high risk doctor that you go to because a higher risk twin pregnancy, they're identical twins. They're in one sac with a thin dividing membrane, but they have a shared placenta, which makes it higher risk. So all of a sudden, I go from 1 baby praying for number 2 to 3 babies. And it took a while for us to get our head wrapped around it, but we're so grateful. And so that's where we're at in life now. We have 3 under 3.
It's insane. You're a hero, but also I feel like what a way to make up for lost time, right?
Yes. And with the number so low, so just like one more quick pin on the whole conversation with the fertility side of things. We had always said we want 2 or 4 children. That's what we had planned for. So when we skipped to 3, we're like, what? Maybe we'll go for number 4. We haven't decided. Let us get our heads wrapped around 3. Like, let's see how we are surviving with 3 children at this point. So we've kind of come to thought of like, we want the option for number 4 if later we decide that that's what we want to do. And I went back in a few months after my giving birth to get my numbers checked and got another really scary number. AMH is now at 0.6. So for me, my original fertility doctor said, oh, we're not worried until you're under a 1.5 for your age, early 30s. While being at a 0.6, it just having that 0 in the number makes me think, oh my gosh, if we want another one, what do we do now? Do we just start trying and pray and do everything on the natural side that we can? And if it works out, great. But if not, like, we're so blessed with our 3 kids, we are incredibly grateful. Or do we do IVF to like do our best to like hopefully pray that that will finish out what we imagine for our family? So we're a little bit in limbo. It feels to me like in a 3-year window, going from a 2.3 down to a 0.6, it feels like eggs are just running out of my body.
Yeah.
And I feel like a bit of a pressure for time with the gratitude for the family that I have, but knowing what our hearts desire, I still feel that pressure of like, my numbers are low. If I go back and get tested again, is it gonna be a 0.3? Is it gonna be a like what it feels like it's just a little scary. And I feel like I've had that fear throughout my fertility journey,
Mhm.
and our journey to a family, just that like level of fear of like, will we be able to have the family that we envisioned, or not? So yeah,
I will
we're still
say,
kind of in the fertility world. We're incredibly blessed with our 3 kids.
of course, and I say this all the time to my clients, but also on this podcast, especially when we talk about secondary infertility and women start to get very shy and shameful and feel guilty, like that they're not grateful for what they have just because they want another. But the reality is that we are all entitled to whatever family dynamic we dream for ourselves. And that's just what it is, however
Yeah.
we get there. And I would also tell you, and I'm sure you know this, although I feel like your doctor, who I'm sure is wonderful, freaked you out, but like AMH is not the only indicator clearly of whether you're going to have a successful pregnancy and a live birth, because if we're looking at quality versus quantity, you're putting out some quality eggs there. So that's
Hmm.
really what's important, you know?
Yes, totally. Totally. I hear you. There's so much more to it, as
Yeah.
anyone that's been in the fertility world for a while has learned. It's it's so complex.
Yeah. Okay, so we have 3 under 3. Let's go into when you said like we'll see where we are with these 3 and then we'll decide from there. I feel like you at the time of this recording, first of all, it's National Infertility Awareness Week, but also last week an episode of your show The Valley came out where you were extremely amazingly vulnerable and talked a lot about your postpartum depression or anxiety. And you have received so much wonderful, beautiful feedback, which I think is why you even talked about it. So that was several months ago when it was filmed. Can you tell us, have you made any changes that have helped your journey? Have you been officially diagnosed with any of the PPD, PPA? And what have you been able to do to make your daily life better and more manageable?
Yeah, it was so much to deal with, while all the hormones that our bodies go through after giving birth, especially with twins, it felt so much more intense than it did after my son. And then on top of that, having cameras around, it was something that I made an informed decision going into before giving birth and before knowing that I was going to be experiencing all these hormones and all the emotions and the heaviness that I dealt with. But I wanted to be able to be raw and show the craziness of the postpartum season, 'cause I feel like that is not something that's shown kind of in real time often, or that I know of on reality TV. So I was like, all right, we're gonna do this. Like, it's wild, it's messy, it's everything, and we're just gonna show it to the best of our ability. And then on top of that, I started experiencing baby blues, postpartum depression, definitely have some anxiety mixed in there. I talked to my therapist now on the back end when I kind of felt I was in the clear, was finally the time that I found a great therapist that I loved. And so she said, yes, you are very high functioning. You definitely had really strong baby blues, maybe even postpartum depression, definitely some anxiety mixed in there. But she was like, you are high functioning in all of that. You can carry a lot of weight. A lot of mothers can and do, but it doesn't negate the fact that you were dealing with so much that was really weighing on you emotionally and even spiritually. Like, it was just so heavy. And it felt outside of my control because of I'm such like a mentally disciplined person. So the fact that I could not get out of the sadness was really hard for me, but I am glad to have been able to share that on national television, because I have had so many messages of women saying, I feel seen, I feel heard. It was almost like therapy watching you experience it, because I don't feel so alone. So I'm glad that I was able to do that, even though it was so hard and uncomfortable. But I just tried to be really present and share what I was experiencing.
Amazing. Do you feel better now? Are you still battling it a little bit?
I'm so sorry, it cut out a little bit. Can you repeat that?
Yeah. Are you still battling any piece of it, do you think, or you feel like you're past the worst of it?
I feel like I'm definitely past the worst of it when it comes to like the heavy, like dark sadness that I was experiencing. And there were so many times where I felt like this was my new normal. And I'm definitely not in that season. Like, I don't feel like this is my new normal. I don't feel like I am just going to be sad forever. So I'm on the other side of that, but I'm still experiencing a good amount of anxiety. That has dissipated as well, I'd say, even in the last month, but I was definitely having a lot of postpartum anxiety um, with my kids, and just everything was kind of worst case scenario. They're going to get hurt, they're going to get sick, they're going to this and that. And it just like felt so crippling at times. Um, and that's not my natural place that like in my best state of being that I live in. So it was really hard for me to experience that as well. I have moments of it now versus for a while it just felt overwhelming and I was like always worried and stressed. And now I just have little moments and I try my best to acknowledge those moments. I think seeing it and acknowledging it helps a lot, and then move past that, or even just letting it be for a minute. Be like, it's okay to feel like this. It's not going to last forever. Worried. I'm not going to sit in it forever, but it's okay to experience it for a time.
So much perspective. The self-awareness is everything. Okay, so how did you like tell me what the decision and the conversation was like between you and Daniel where you're like, "Yeah, let's do the valley." How did it come to you? I
Oh.
mean, are you like, "Yeah, we're going to have 3 under 3, but let's just bring some cameras in, you know?" How did it go?
Well, we had been having this conversation for a while before we were ever even pregnant with the twins, because Jax and Brittany have been really pitching this show for quite some time. And they told us about it a long time, years ago. And so they said, hey, like, we want to get all of our friends together and film a reality show. That's why Vanderpump worked so well, because it's genuine friends. Let's do that again, but at a different stage of life. We want people that are creating families, have families that, just something that's relatable to a new season of life. Like the viewers of Vanderpump probably have also grown up and are wanting children, have children, figuring out their marriages and their relationships. So we were very hesitant. And even our couples therapist that we have, we were talking to him and kind of we try to do a lot of maintenance on our relationship. So we're just kind of having like a, hey, let's talk to him about this reality show and like check in before we jump into the craziness. And he was like, you guys are doing a reality show? Why are you bringing drama into your life? Like, we were talking to him while I was pregnant. When you're pregnant, why are you choosing to bring drama into your life? And I was like, but I love my friends. And that was kind of Brittany's like conversation with me that convinced me. It was like, or friends, it is honestly like such a blessing to be able to do fun things together, live life together, and get paid to do it. And like, we get extra quality time. I mean, obviously there's drama and it's crazy and it's Bravo, but we do get extra time together that we might not get, because outside of filming, Brittany and I trying to plan play dates, it's like sometimes 3, 4 weeks out because our lives are so busy. But when you're filming, it's like, all right, we're doing it this week and next week. So it's like we get more time together, and she convinced me in that way. But even up to the last minute, Daniel and I were like, are we doing this? Are we really doing this? Are we actually saying yes? Okay, the contracts are signed. Are we sure, even though we signed the contracts, are we sure we
Yes.
really want to do this? So we were a little hesitant because it was something so new, but I am glad in the long run that we did it. And I feel like the season of life that we chose to share is something that people can relate to.
Absolutely. So overall happy that you're doing it still.
Yes.
Good.
Yes, overall happy. And it's like, we are not dramatic people, which is not great for reality TV, but I also think that you need a little bit of balance. So I think we bring some balance to the show.
For sure. Let's talk about pageant life. Um, when you were in the height of pageant life, did you ever think, what did you envision for your future?
Mhm.
And what is it in comparison to what your reality is?
Yeah. Even when people would ask me as a competitor in the interview, they would say, how do you see your life looking in 5 years and 10 years from now? What is your dream job? I would always say that one of the main things I want to do and want to be is I want to be a mother. So I've always known that I want to have children. I want to be a mother. I want to be a wife. I want to create a family, create memories for my children. And so I'm very grateful that I'm doing that now. And then it's changed over the years. When I was younger in my competition days and I was still training in martial arts every single day, I would say, I want to own my own martial arts studio. And like, that's my dream. I've always loved teaching. I used to say that I wanted to be a teacher. Um, and then I've always loved kids. So it's just anything where I can work with women or children was something that I wanted to do. And so how that from when I was competing and envisioning my life to now living it it's been 10 years since I was Miss USA. I'm living a version of what I imagined. Not exactly what I imagined, but a version of it. I have one coming up in two coming up in California soon. Hopefully another one will be planned for New York in the next month or so. And
Hold
I
on, you cut
coach
out. You
young
cut
women
out.
in pageantry. It
Hold
ends
on.
up being more.
You
Oh,
cut out.
no worries.
Say, I heard you say, I didn't hear, start again from what's coming up in California and then hopefully New York.
Yeah. I have two women self-defense workshops coming up in California, hopefully another one in New York in about a month and a half or so. And then on top of that, I'm coaching pageant women. So I'm helping women work on not only like how to do an interview, how to walk on stage, but it does end up becoming life coaching, headspace coaching, because having like a winning, confident headspace is so much more important than just being able to speak well. It's really important where your head is at when you're competing. So it becomes more of overall life coaching at the same time. So I get to help people and I get to have the flexibility to create my own schedule and be with my family. So it's a version of what I imagined, and I think almost even a better version. I'm very grateful.
When you were going through pageant life, do you feel like you had somebody to help you through in terms of a life coach or somebody to hold your hand?
No, I did not. I had coaches. I had pageant coaches and I had like my directors, like my state directors that were like there for me, but it was more there for me in specific pageant prep. And so I had a team and I had people for the preparations when it came to competing, but I didn't really have a mentor for life, especially after. Like, okay, you're done being Miss USA. This is how you succeed after. Like, there is no hand holding after Miss USA or like the Miss Universe competition. It's just all right, figure it out. You got this.
Mm.
So I definitely went through a lot of trial and error after being Miss USA. The year of Miss USA is absolutely incredible. And it's hard to describe. At least it was for me during the season that I was Miss USA. The season of life where like you have a driver and you can, have groceries delivered to your door every week and they pay for your rent, pay for your airfare and travel if you're going on jobs. Like everything is taken care of. And then you get kind of dropped really hard back into reality. And nobody's calling you up to show up to an event. No one is calling you up to speak on behalf of their charity or to do a job or host an event. So you kind of have to really hit the ground running and figure it out on your own. And so it was like I said, a lot of trial and error, but I'm grateful I had a good partner. And so we really lifted each other up in that like transitional season of life.
How did you meet your partner?
Daniel, my husband, I was Miss Nevada. And so before all of the pageantry USA stuff, we met at church in Los Angeles a little bit before I competed for Nevada. I was back and forth between Nevada and LA, trying desperately to hold on to my Disney job because I worked at Disneyland and I didn't want to give it up. I loved working there. So one of my girlfriends invited me to church and I went to church and Daniel, excuse me, I'm a little congested. Daniel was standing at the door greeting people. He was a greeter to welcome people into church. We had mutual friends. So he recognized me, but I did not recognize him at the time. I actually, yeah, I didn't recognize him at all, but I'm glad that he recognized me because he said, "Hey, you're Nia Sanchez, right?" And I was thinking, how does this really cute guy know my first and last name? Like this is weird. A church that I had never been to before. But I'm so glad that he stopped me and said something because on the way out, I told my girlfriend, I want to say bye to the cute guy at the door. So we went back to his door, said bye. He found me on Facebook a few days later. He didn't even have an Instagram account. That was like 2013, shortly after Instagram started to become really popular. So found me on Facebook. We connected then, and he wanted to take me out on a date. So it was either going to see him in LA or Runyon Canyon, which is like a very popular hike that celebrities and everybody does. And most girls go with the full face of makeup and their like fancy, barely there workout clothes, take all the Instagram photos. I did not know this because I'm not from LA. So I have family in the Pacific Northwest. I'm in Washington State right now. So I show up in trail shoes and yoga pants with like a baggy like workout shirt and a camelback backpack with a water spout. I'm ready for a hike. He says he's taking me for a hike. I am ready. I have my gear. I have my trail shoes. Like I have it all. And he was like, "No, you are not wearing that on Runyon Canyon. I will carry a water bottle for you. Like you're not wearing a backpack with a water spout." So that was our first date. And I think it was strategic on his end because he said, "Oh, it's hot. I'm gonna take my off." So he took his shirt off on like in the first 10 minutes. And he jokes and says, "Yeah, after that, she dropped down on one knee and proposed." But yeah, that was kind of how we met all the way up to our first date. And it was fun. Like he was everything that I wanted and I was very specific in that season of life. I had a one date rule. I would kind of weave in certain questions and if they didn't meet my like ideals for something that I wanted in a future husband, I wasn't going to spend time going on 2 or 3 dates with them. So he met those kind of like requirements on the first date to get a second date and then the rest is history.
Love it. I love it. So, in closing, I always like to ask people, is there a phrase or a saying or a piece of advice that you were given or you like to give that sort of you think about on a regular basis, on a daily basis that you want to share?
Um yes, maybe we'll do 2.
Great.
When it comes to the fertility world, I love the phrase, if you want to be a mother, you will be in one way or another, because there's so many options in the fertility world. And, I think as women, we hope to have our own baby with our own eggs and carry our baby. But thank God for modern medicine. And if you want to be a mother, you will be. And there's so many ways to get there. So I love that. And I say that to my friends. I have so many friends who have traveled through infertility and I feel so grateful that they feel that they can turn to me and I can be a support for them because I've experienced it and I can relate to it. And then my like kind of life verse is a Bible verse, and it's perhaps you were born for such a time as this, Esther 4:14. And that's something that in hard moments, in happy moments, in stressful moments, I try to hold on to that because what I'm going through in life is for like for some type of purpose. There's a reason behind it. So everything from being diagnosed with unexplained infertility and having a year and a half before conceiving when I thought it would be right away, there is a purpose and a reason for that. I am able to relate to an entire group of women that I never would have been able to relate to, including my sister-in-law who her and my brother experienced infertility for 5 years and they actually just conceived. Thank God. I'm so happy for them, but it was a 5-year journey. And I would not have been able to relate to them in the emotional way if I had not experienced that on my own, in my own experience. To like sharing postpartum baby blues and all of that with the so hard, but if I kept reminding myself of that verse, perhaps you're born for such a time as this, like there is a reason behind whatever I'm experiencing. So it helps me end of the tunnel, even though it's hard to see sometimes. So that verse definitely is something that I try to live by.
A really good one. Nia, thank you so much for being here, for opening up so vulnerably, and we appreciate you.
Yay.